Harrison Price for Monday, March 9th, 2026. We're a presentation of Bet365, coming to you from the Nation Network studio here at the historic Wall Center. Matt Sakaris with Blake Price, two-time provincial basketball champion Mike Rogerson hitting switches and conducting things. How was your weekend?
It was good. Busy, yeah. Sporting things for the kids, and yeah, it was good. Yeah, how about you?
Was marvelous.
Yeah?
Absolutely marvelous.
What made it so marvelous?
Well, on Friday, we went out for a nibble and a drink with her best friend because it was her birthday last week. Saturday, spent some QT with my folks. And then yesterday, played Northlands with Northlands legend Doug Lum, our old friend.
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Course was in magnificent shape, sunshine, brilliant. Emerald green everywhere you looked. Golf season is back. It is my favorite season because it runs 3 seasons.
Northlands got snow last night, but okay.
We've got it in. Shout out Gary and Curtis and the fantastic team there. Anyways, Vancouver Canucks in the aftermath of the National Hockey League trade deadline on Friday. First of all, I just want to say, got a lovely call on Friday night from someone who said, I've been tracking your show, and boy, you guys seem to have a robust audience this season. And I said, yeah, and as a matter of fact, the community response has been great. We love our audience members. Some go all the way back to our radio days. Some are newer, but thank you all for participating in this program day to day throughout the course of this hockey season. And then the person said to me, and I'm trying to figure that out with the worst team in the NHL by a mile.
Yeah.
I went, yep.
And we hope
doesn't seem to equate, but it has been a newsy season. And as we
newsy.
know, there is an insatiable thirst for Canucks coverage, for Canucks news, information, opinion, regardless of what the record shows.
I am mildly worried about losing fatigue, and yet then I realize this team just creates so much damn drama on a week-to-week, month-to-month, year-to-year basis. I think we're going to have something to chew on. I think there will always be something. And hey, at the very what I have noticed about our audience too, Matt, they love the next one. They love profiled young players that provide the next bit of hope.
Well, I think every hockey market, like smart hockey market, knows that. And I mean, this is one of the best hockey markets the world over and one of the smartest, if not the smartest hockey market the world over. So as we've been saying for more than a decade, Blake, like I'm sorry, if you can rebuild in Montreal, you can rebuild in Toronto, you can most certainly rebuild in Vancouver. And people understand. They know that when they watch the Stanley Cup final in June, it is typically taking place between a couple of teams that have gone through some pain, have gone through a rebuild, and emerged the other side. And I was thinking this on the weekend as I was sitting there watching the Buffalo Sabres do it again. And what an extraordinary game with Tampa last night. I mean, goals aplenty, the lead volleying back and forth, fights. Even the scary doomsday boogeyman story of the Buffalo Sabres and their forever rebuild, even that now is gone, right?
Yeah.
Like, if Buffalo made the Stanley Cup final out of the East, would you be the least bit surprised with the way that team has been going?
More on this coming up later in the block from me, but no, I mean, we've seen hot teams carry that into the playoffs and ride that onto a deep run, and it's completely possible that that's what happens here with the Buffalo Sabres.
Yeah, and again, everybody, the only Stanley Cup champion this century that did not go through some degree of rebuild, that did not have top 3, top 5 picks on their roster were the Vegas Golden Knights, who got the most favorable expansion draft in the history of expansion drafts. It's the only one.
Mm-hmm.
Every other one has gone through some pain and suffering before reaching the mountaintop, and Vancouver Canucks fans from Tofino to the Alberta border, in the northern reaches, and certainly here on the south coast and the lower mainland, Fraser Valley, are firmly aware of the pathway that needs to be walked for this team to emerge on the other side. And it brings us to our daily poll question. Now that the trade deadline is over, who needs to go? Rutherford, Alvin, Foote, or you can vote all of the above. Do so at the Sig Harrison Price X and YouTube channels. Just how bad is this team? Take a look at the J-Fresh hockey card here, Blake, on the Vancouver Canucks. Yeah, we know they're 32 in points percentage in the NHL, but just look at the rest of those numbers in the individual categories. Expected goals for, 29th. Expected goals against, 32nd. Expected goal share, 32nd. Dead last. The penalty kill's dead last. Even Foote had that going last year. Couldn't maintain. Virtually everything there is in the lower third of the NHL, outside of goaltending, number 13, but that's still factoring in Thatcher Demko's hot month of October, and the power play has gotten incrementally better.
And look at the fall from grace in the top right corner there, the 5v5 goal and expected goal shares, the steepness of which would make climbers of K2 shudder, I think. What a couple of years it's been for Canucks fans who have now seen it fall to this.
Yeah, they're 10 points back of the Rangers for worst team in the NHL, and the Rangers actually have a game in hand as well. Their minus 41 goal differential is a full 25 worse than the next worst team, the St. Louis Blues. So there is no equivocation here. I mean, this is the worst team in the NHL by a country mile. And look, I understand there are lowered expectations around a rebuild because the Canucks have taken forever to get to this rebuild, and there have been enough comments, particularly out of Patrick Alvin, that suggest they're hoping to get by with even more impatience and a quickie rebuild, as Blake has been saying, touch bottom and try and bounce right back up. And this remains a concern for some, particularly if they land the first overall pick in the entry draft, take Gavin McKenna or Ivar Stenberg and convince themselves that, no, we got a real player here, a superstar burgeoning on the wing, and so we can go about and trade some of these draft picks that we've just acquired to get playoff competitive. Playoff being the operative word, not cup contender. I like what Drance wrote in The Athletic. And here's the tweet. You want to know the cold hard truth? Very few assets acquired by selling teams are likely to transform their outlook or impact their future, and that is particularly true of the Vancouver Canucks. If you look at this deadline season post-Quinn Hughes trade, I don't think you can put the Quinn Hughes trade into rebuild and deadline season because, remember, they were trying to be competitive then. They did not acquire a first-round pick. They did not acquire a top prospect. They did not weaponize cap space. They did not trade all their UFAs. So while you can look at it and say, "Oh, they're net 8 picks, and they've started the rebuild," that's great. But this was a very important deadline for the organization, and they fell short of my expectations. I know you feel a little bit differently. But they certainly didn't knock it out of the park, right? Like, nobody can say they hit a home run here or even a triple. If you say they hit a double, I think even that's being kind, but feel free to quibble.
I think, as I said, they met the minimum requirements for me. I think you're not gonna plan a parade over what they accomplished or what they acquired. I hope a headline like that doesn't dissuade people, though, from the exercise entirely. Like, you still need to acquire. The whole point is
Nope.
more and more and more. You get all the picks possible with the hopes that you get a transformative player. Like, that's the whole point.
Because the thing here, Blake, and I think you can GMs are getting smarter in the NHL. And I think that goes hand in hand with the fact that GMs now have staffs available to them who are crunching analytics and just bringing better information to the table when you get around to pro scouting meetings and deadline meetings and things like that. We thought with the cap going up as it did last summer, that there would be a drunken sailor spending spree in free agency. And for the second straight year, or another summer, remember, flat cap forced them into discipline. But this was the second occasion, I think, when there was money in the system that wasn't entirely spent, that general managers got a little bit more discipline. And I think the other thing is for a second straight year, you've had a firm seller's market at the deadline. And while some GMs were willing to take the plunge and dive, and some just decided to maybe overpay a little bit for, on sort of mid-tier players with greater returns than you might look at for a mid-tier player, many also resisted the temptation to go get the big game that St. Louis was peddling, and some other Stamkos and Nash that some other teams had available. There was 19 trades on trade deadline day. The Nazem Kadri trade comes in right at the end, Blake, which needless to say is a banger and attention grabbing.
Yeah.
Justin Falk's a good player, but I'm not sure he's putting Detroit over the top. Same with Braden Shen with the New York Islanders. So St. Louis gets some of the bigger pieces traded, but they don't trade Robert Thomas. They don't trade Jordan Kyrou. They wind up not being able to trade Colton Parayko because he uses his trade protection. I would have thought that there would have been bigger names moving at the deadline.
Between no move and no trade clauses and cap space for all, I think that's what contributed to the lack of movement. And now I think the Blues and the Canucks in particular, and maybe to the Flames to some degree as well, those guys, their players, now become the de facto free agent class. Because the free agents are so thin right now, the UFAs, I think you have to look at these clearinghouse teams, of which the Canucks are included, and say that their players with term are now the de facto free agents to be acquired on July 1st, or I guess via trade around the draft as well. If you need a winger, you need a forward, that's where you go looking, because Alex Tuch and who's the other decent forward? Is it Schmaltz?
There's talk that he's going to re-sign in Utah, but yes,
Yeah.
I mean, Alex Ovechkin, but nobody expects him to play, or if he is going to play in the NHL, Washington. Although buddies on the golf course yesterday mentioned what you said to me on Friday, and that is it possible that Ovechkin is so pissed off by the John Carlson trade that he would sign with Edmonton or Pittsburgh, go join one of the other superstars as a final NHL tour? But no, if Ovechkin, as it stands right now, without any further information, if Ovechkin is going to play next year in the NHL, people believe it will be with Washington. He's also talked about finishing up his career in Russia, much like Jaromir Jagr has done in Czechia, although I don't think he'll last as long as Jagr has. I mean, John Carlson's a very good defenseman. He's a free agent.
He's a very old defenseman.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's 36 years old, but he's got a...
That's very old.
Yeah, but, Nick Schmaltz, Jaden Schwartz, it is Alex. I mean, Alex Tuch rises above them all, I think, Blake, in terms of...
I mean, if Brock Boeser was on that list, he would be near the top of it. Like, and
oh my God, I'm just looking at Schwartz having a shockingly bad season.
Yeah. So if Brock Boeser's on that list, he is arguing to be the second most accomplished player on that list.
Yeah.
Maybe
The problem is he's having a shockingly bad season, too.
as long as he gets to 20 goals, which is still in play here, I think he can hold his head relatively high.
Yeah. Anthony Mathis having a nice season, but he's 31 years old. So, yeah, I mean, you are right that there is not a robust free agent class. It could have been, but of course, a lot of these extensions have been done in season or on the eve of the season, thus thinning out the market. Getting back to the Canucks, I liked what our buddy Wyatt Arndt, the stanchion, said as well. The Canucks essentially throw on a couple of Band-Aids to the many self-inflicted wounds they've created over the years. When you take a look at the Connor Garland extension and what they wound up taking for him, you were a little more impressed with me. And look, when we evaluate this management group, they've gotten the big stuff wrong. The Elias Pettersson contract extension, the Bo Horvat trade over JT, the JT Miller trade, the taking that first from the Rangers and turning it into Marcus Pettersson, the Boeser extension, the Demko extension, the Garland extension. They've gotten the big stuff wrong, and they've gotten the little stuff wrong as well. Blake's old friend Vasily Podkolzin with his 15th goal for the Edmonton Oilers on the weekend. As Rob Williams points out, 15 goals would stand tied for the Vancouver Canucks' active goal lead, shared with Brock Boeser, of course. Andrew O'Connor, of course. Kiefer Sherwood with 17 continues to lead the Canucks in goal scoring. He has not played for the Canucks.
All of Vasily Podkolzin's goals are at even strength. He has one fewer even strength goal than I believe both McDavid and Draisaitl.
Yeah, and if you were going to give up on a top 10 pick, don't do it to a division rival, right?
Give him one.
Like at the time, your derby was the Edmonton Oilers. At the time, we were having the conversation, what do they have to do to get over the Edmonton hurdle in the Stanley Cup playoffs after losing in 7 games in the second round a couple of years ago and getting there with your third-string goaltender, Artur Shilovs.
And Podkolzin was never at risk of scoring 30 in this league. I feel quite confident that's never going to happen. But scoring 20 was always a distinct possibility. And he's a detail-oriented guy that wants to be a pro. And we've seen how many players come through this organization the last handful of years, Matt, where you just wonder if they want to do this.
Right.
You know, and there's a kid that wants to do it.
Do you have any joy? Do you have any
drive?
Professionalism in the craft?
Yeah.
Kid was a worker bee. He even talked about how, the Canucks sat him down and said, hockey decisions. You got to make better hockey decisions. He's worked on that part too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's too bad. That'd be helpful. Now they still do have, I was looking today at sort of what's in the cupboard, and we know the guys that are at the AHL level, and those guys are a little bit more obvious. The long shot that still could be something here is Kirill Kudryavtsev on the defensive side of things. But I was also looking on the forwards, like a 4th and a 6th round pick are still very much in play here for the Canucks, and Riley Patterson and Anthony Romani. Both of them are completely on track and ahead of pace probably for where each of them should be. So if you're looking for like shots in the dark, something like a long odd bet that might pay off, like Patterson and Romani are possibilities there.
Well, we're talking about Patterson's exploits in the OHL this year. He's been extraordinary. Of course, Lekramaki, but he's hurt now. Coots and Coots missed a game on the weekend for Prince Albert. I wouldn't close the door on Vilmer Ulrichsen because people of that size tend to develop later, and they're going to get every opportunity. But
nor would I close the door on Sawyer Minio. I think there's still a possibility there too.
No, Minio for sure. Yeah. He's got a lot of runway left. Yeah. Ulrichsen, it's 9 points in 43 games with Abbey this year, so that's not good by any stretch, but there's a possibility.
But this rebuild gets shorter if a couple of those pan out.
That's it. And that is the underpinning logic on why you collect all these picks, even non-premium picks that the Vancouver Canucks did in their trade deadline season, and their net 8 picks, and that's good. We're talking about this in historic terms because the Canucks very rarely go into a draft with more than the full complement of 7 picks. In fact, for many, many years, they went into drafts with fewer than the full complement of 7 picks. But they have the extra first this year from Minnesota. They have the extra second from San Jose, and they have 2 extra sixths from Boston and Washington, courtesy of work right at the deadline in moving Lucas Reichel to the Bruins and David Kampf to the Capitals. And then your surplus picks in the second round next year with Dallas and San Jose. Your surplus picks in the fourth round next year with a Pittsburgh selection, and surplus picks in 2028 with an additional second from Columbus and an additional fourth from Toronto.
Yeah, there's inventory there. And
I voted all of the above, though. I mean, look, these guys have had their chance, and they have failed. The organization has gone backwards under Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin. There is no debate about that. You can't sell their past work here. The damage is done, even if they have finally come around on the vision side of things and actually executing a long-term rebuild with stockpiling picks. So, and then, Foot's work, as we've talked about, the young defensemen have backslid. The team is just a disaster defensively. If he can't get that part right, then for me, he is not a bona fide NHL head coach. And I would like to see them clean house entirely.
It's the easiest and probably the most correct choice on the poll question. I think you could argue immediate triage would be Foot, because I think he's responsible for the culture. He's responsible for a system that develops the players that he's got. I'm not confident that he can do either of those two things. And then I just don't think Patrick Allvin has got it.
Although it must be said, folks, for some time now, since the Elias JT business, Jim Rutherford has put both hands back on the wheel. Patrick has been emasculated to a degree. Yes, he might still be the administrator of trades, and particularly the small ones like Camp for a sixth-round pick. And yes, he might have to be the unfortunate son charged with going out and explaining all this on a more regular basis. But there is very little in this organization that gets done without Jim Rutherford's consent, approval, if not design.
And that's fair. But there is, and I'm not saying this because English is a second language to him, there is nothing that I hear him speak about that gives me confidence that there's a learning happening, that he could one day ascend to the job and be the guy that makes the decisions.
You mean you aren't brimming with confidence after he talks about retooling it a little bit in a hybrid form? Just weeks after his GM says no rebuild, and then says, oh, no, now we do have to rebuild.
You should be happy.
You're telling me you don't get any confidence with him trying to say at least we're not starting the rebuild from scratch?
Yeah. And his explanations of the
which we're going to get into here in a moment.
Were just, I don't even understand them.
What you can say about the Vancouver Canucks is after their deadline work, they are now the third youngest team in the National Hockey League with an average age of 26.88. The Blackhawks are there with them, a little further advanced in their rebuild, and that stands.
And if they had their druthers.
And then there's Montreal and Buffalo, who are pretty good-looking playoff teams who have gone through rebuilds and are now reaping the fruits.
And if the Canucks had their druthers, Evander Kane wouldn't be on this team, I don't think, right now.
That's right. They'd be even younger.
And if they really had their magic beans, they might use those on Marcus Pettersson as well.
So you voted Foot or Allvin. You can...
Well, I would vote the duo, but you can't. That's not an option, so I'll say all of the above.
Let's go to our top story. It's brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. Blake mentioned it. Patrick Allvin. Allvin over his head. Canucks GM fumbles and bumbles his way through a post-deadline radio interview trying to explain where this team is at and what has happened. He went on 650 after his Rogers Arena scrum on Friday, which already had a few eyebrows raised. He was asked some very good questions from Sat Shaw and Bick Nazar. He did not have very good answers. He was asked how they got an offer, and we were mentioning this on Friday. How do you get an offer on David Kampf and not Teddy Blueger when Blueger is by far the superior player and isn't going to cost that much more when you talk about mid-round pick versus sixth-round pick. Alvin couldn't really explain that. He talked around it. He didn't seem to love the question. Anyone would have suspected that was going to be a question, right? The UFAs were the ones that should have been traded.
Teddy Blueger is 3 off a career high in goals. He's played 16 games this year.
He's been on a Stanley Cup team in Vegas. He is an effective checking and penalty killing centerman. All these things are typically in demand at the trade deadline, and somehow, some way, Teddy Blueger is a Vancouver Canuck here today. Nazar asked him how management can say you don't rebuild when you have Miller and Hughes and then claim the rebuild isn't starting from scratch. Another very good question. Specify the timeline for me here, Patrick, because you seem to be trying to confuse things, if not intentionally conflating things, to try and make it look better.
I think what he was thinking in his own brain there was, yeah, but we've got prospects in the system, so we're not. Everybody has prospects in this system.
Yeah, and if you missed it Friday, Alvin was asked a very good question about from Patrick Johnson. What's your message to fans right now after this deadline work? And he said the fans should be, I'm paraphrasing, the fans should be happy because they're not starting from scratch.
I don't think you're paraphrasing. I think it's exactly what he said.
So Nazar follows up with, you said you weren't going to rebuild with Miller and Hughes here. Rutherford is on record in December, a couple of weeks before the Hughes trade, or late November, saying there won't be a rebuild. And now you're trying to tell us you haven't started from scratch. Once again, asked that question and struggled to answer it coherently. And then he also was asked why it didn't work out with Evander Kane, who they were left holding after the deadline. He quibbled with the premise, saying it has worked out with Evander. He's been a good player and a good citizen for them, too.
Yeah, messaging is not strong here from this team, and it's got to get better going forward.
If it worked out with Evander, how come you couldn't trade him?
Yeah.
Did others not see what you have seen about how gloriously it's worked out?
They're just trying to soft pedal the disappointment here, Matt. And in a rebuild, messaging is critical because there's not wins and losses on a night-to-night basis.
The Montreal Canadiens were consistent, Blake. They were clear, and it got everybody on board, whether the messenger was Marty St. Louis, their head coach, whether it was Kent Hughes, their general manager, whether it was Jeff Gorton, their president of hockey operations, or their owner. Their owner even spoke about this.
But it's not even just at the start and saying what our intentions are. On a night-to-night basis, you're going to get questions about why did that young player not play tonight? Why did that young player get reduced ice time? And it needs to be a cohesive messaging plan about where we're all at with individual players and as a group. Because, again, you can't sell wins and losses because there's just too many losses.
Too few wins.
So you have to sell the people on, we know what we're doing.
Right.
We've got our hands on the wheel, and we're on the road, not in the shoulder, not in the ditch.
And not that there isn't always scrutiny on the work of the head coach of the Vancouver Canucks, but that becomes more acute now because what Blake is describing is organizational alignment. Okay, the owner has finally greenlit a rebuild. The managers are finally executing a rebuild, and now it is up to the head coach and his staff to do their part, and that is making sure that there is ice time available. In fact, giving extra ice time to some of these young players that you anticipate will be a part of your next competitive cycle. So that's a Liam Ogren. More on him in a moment. That's a Zeev Buium, getting him power play, quarterbacking the power play. We know that Philip Roenick can do it. We want to see Zeev Buium do it. That's important going forward. Marco Rossi, getting him the lion's share of ice time at center ice as a 24-year-old. And as well as the bottom six guys, your Ratus, your Carlsons, your Sassones, and then, of course, the three young defense. Well, four now. Buium, EPD, Villander, and now Victor Mancini, who has entered the chat since the Tyler Myers trade. It is now incumbent on Foote and his staff to get all of those players, not just ice time, but more ice time than they would otherwise get even in competitive situations when you're trying to win the hockey game, Blake, because you need to see how they respond in all of those situations, not to mention every second on that ice surface and in a competitive arena against an NHL opponent is development for them.
But that's tap-in stuff. And Kudryavtsev, by the way, should be on that list for some ice time at some point before the season is done. From here to the end of the season, to me, that it should be a tap-in. Zero priority to the veterans. And truthfully, Matt, as you're trying to, give the fans something to look forward to, like fans are going to look forward to that.
Yep.
Watching young players.
And he's begun. The young defensemen have gotten more ice time here, and that's got to continue. That's got to continue in a post-Tyler Myers world where it's easier, but that's got to continue at the expense of Marcus Pettersson if that's what's required. He's had a horrible season.
But my question is not so much for the end of this year. Again, you're not playing for anything. Your record is what your record is. You're that close to the best odds in the draft lottery.
Evander Kane too, right on the wing.
I think
we'll get into that with Dreger.
I think everybody should have this easily down pat. My bigger questions, Matt, are for next year. Because guess what? You start in October and you're undefeated. And for the first month of the season, Matt, you can taste 500. It's right there. You're either one game above, one game below. How are they going to operate this team next year when deep down you cannot win the Stanley Cup? But maybe you start 3-3-1. How do you operate the team at that point?
So it's a good point. I would like to add 2 points of context. Number one, I think some of that work will be done for you because of how young the makeup of the group will be, right? Now, that might be a little different when it comes to who's your power play quarterback because we do anticipate that Philip Hronek will be here.
That's right.
And we do anticipate that Zeev Buium is going to be your power play quarterback in your next competitive cycle, or maybe somewhere over the next few years you get a defenseman who's even more inclined offensively to run that power play than Buium. But I hear you there. The other thing I will say, Blake, is it is a bit of a balance off the top of a season. You may know you're going to be terrible, but I think you do owe it to your fans and your customers to put your best foot forward and try and win every night when everyone's at 0-0 or a few games into the season and nothing yet has been determined. I do think there's a covenant with the fans to give your best, play your best, try to win every game. If this goes according to how most rebuilds go, then at some point next year, it may be Remembrance Day, it may be Christmas. Hell, if you come out of the gate 0-7, 0-8, it could be the end of October. But at some point, the worm will turn for you in terms of where the playoff bar is and your relationship to it. And then at that point, I think you're absolutely right. Then it's got to be tunnel vision and focus.
I would just argue that on a couple of fronts, the young players provide equal, if not better, opportunity to score. Now, like Evander Kane will be gone next year, obviously, but I don't want to see them go and get veteran wingers to make sure that Elias Pettersson and Marco Rossi are insulated and have proper. No,
I've been
give
thinking
Jonathan
about
Lekramacky primetime opportunity. Give Liam Ogren primetime opportunity to score NHL goals right from the get-go.
Okay. I've been thinking about this a little bit because, and if you've been listening to the show, you understand the stakes have changed a little bit than when you rebuilt pre-pandemic or when you were rebuilding in a flat cap era. The stakes have changed because this salary cap is taking significant jumps year to year. We saw the first one last summer. We'll see another one this summer. Alan Walsh, the player agent who is sitting there calculating the hockey-related revenue, thinks in 3 years' time we could be looking at a $123 million cap, which is a 30% increase from where it even is right now. I'm with you in terms of don't go out and sign a veteran forward the profile of Evander Kane. No question about that. Or even worse yet, trade for him because they did trade for him, right? Gave up an asset. I would make a couple of exceptions under the banner that I would call talent acquisition. Alex Tuck's wife's from Vancouver. Alex Tuck is a very good player, probably the best player in free agency. Alex Tuck is going to command a ridiculous amount of money. He is believed to be asking, and this is why things have not got done with Buffalo, and the only reason why he is still a Buffalo Sabre is because they're competitive again, and he's a big part of that, and they didn't want to. The plan was to either get him signed or trade him by the deadline when they were stinking the joint out in October, November. That's not the case. It is believed that Tuck wants something in the realm or north of the Adrian Kempe extension, which is 10-6. And that sounds like an awful lot of money, don't get me wrong. It is less money in this cap climbing environment. Talent acquisition is going to be so difficult in free agency year to year that even if you're in the beginning of a rebuild, Blake, if you have the cap space and the cap space isn't going to matter for you for the next few years, adding a player like Tuck does make sense to me.
I couldn't disagree more.
Okay. You're operating from an old playbook.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
This is a 4 to 5 year rebuild. What is the point of having him here for maybe 2 years and his oldest 2 years?
How old is he now?
He's going to be 30 in training camp. So you're saying, no, but the Canucks might be good when he's 36, 37, and that'll be good to have him around for?
No, 34.
You're going to sign him for 4 years from now and hope that he's still good. After you just showed us the graph at the end of last week about the plummeting performance of 30-plus.
I hear you. There are outliers, is what I would argue.
Outliers of what?
Outliers who go against the curve, go against the grain.
I don't see him being an outlier. He's not that special. He's a nice player, but he's not that special of a player. And these players will come along every single year.
I'm not sure they will, Blake. That's the difference. I'm not sure they will. We saw the list of prime free agents coming up this summer, and now you look at the list, and it's not prime at all.
And my worry would be
but
he makes
Blake,
them.
You have 3 avenues to talent acquisition. You have the draft, which they're going to have a lot of draft picks. Now, you hope to get high priced or premium picks, first round picks. You've got the trade market, which we're sitting here looking at Canucks players. If you're not putting Philip Roenick in play trade-wise, the players you have, I'm not sure are retaining or returning you that much talent, are they? Like, are you holding out hope that Elias returns a payload?
Yeah, or in a trade, you mean?
Yeah.
No. I don't think you're trading Elias Pettersson at this point.
Right. And then your third avenue is free agency, which could get very thin year to year as the cap goes up and everybody has the cap space to re-sign their own free agents. Like, you're not going to see quality players shake out into free agency like you have over the last 5 years because it's no longer a flat cap. It is now a blossoming cap where everybody can go about in season a year before signing their own free agents before they even get to market. So I think it's going to be so rare to find good players
using that logic,
free agency.
If you're an agent and everybody's got money, why are you telling that guy to sign with his incumbent team? There's never been a better time for a bidding war on a player. Never been a better time.
And Blake, if they were all mercenaries who wanted that, I could completely understand you. But as we have seen in this sport over a long, long period
right, but that's
time,
the old playbook.
If they are happy in their current environment, they are going to re-sign there before they get to free agency.
But that's the old playbook,
more often than not a team deciding we're done with this player that gets those guys to free agency.
Think about the young players that have already forced the hands of their drafting team for moves to move on. It's never been a more pick-me tall poppy era than what we're seeing in the NHL, and it will only grow from here. The Tkachuk, like we both agreed 2 weeks ago, Brady Tkachuk is not going to be a Senator for life. Not a chance. all these players, they are now starting to learn. No, I'm in charge of me.
That's why you have to be in a position to have the capital, roster players, draft picks, and prospects to be able to acquire those players when they do come up for trade. And that's where guys like Alex Tuck can help. I'm just saying.
I don't think he chooses it because, again,
I don't think so either. But what I'm saying is his wife's from here. You know how British Columbians are, right? They have a tough time living anywhere but British Columbia, and look around and you get it, rightfully so. If she wants to come home and he tells his agent, look, contact Vancouver. That's a place that I could be interested in playing, that we'd be interested in being as a family.
Also, if Alex
first of all, you know they're going to be in it because they're going to be like, oh my God, the top free agent wants to play here or is considering us.
And if Alex Tuck scores too many goals and helps you get back into the mushy middle again,
he's not.
Then
he's not in the near term. He's not in the near term. On next year's team,
what? Well, somebody's got to score goals.
Yeah, he'll score goals.
Yeah, you don't want that. You don't want that. Wow. Finish last again next year with a bullet.
Now the other thing in Alvin's, I would say it's in his defense, but of course they are victims of their own making here. It's clear that other GMs smelled blood in the water, knew the Canucks were desperate, knew the chatter in this marketplace, the pressure that this managed group was in, and they offered accordingly. You had to pry Nazem Kadri out of Calgary. Flames did a very good job in messaging to the rest of the league. Our owner doesn't want to tear down rebuild. We're not really interested in trading Nazem Kadri unless Sox knocked. Sure enough, the last minute, Colorado knocked Sox. More on that with Darren Dreger. You had to pry the St. Louis guys out of St. Louis, right? With what Shannon Falk went for, and God knows what the prices on Thomas and Kyrou would have been. I think other GMs knew, we don't really have to pry anyone out of Vancouver. We'll offer a second and third for Connor Garland because you know what? That's acquisition at a bargain. And if the Canucks walk away, the Canucks walk away.
Did the Blues do better than the Canucks? I think the Blues and the Canucks both suffered the same fate. I think the two teams that opened up for business first are the ones that probably got less business done than they wanted to get done.
The Blues got conditional first and third round picks and a halfway decent prospect goaltender for Braden Shen, in part because they took bad money back with Jonathan Drouin. They got first and third round picks, a halfway decent winger prospect for Justin Falk.
I would argue that both of those products, though, were better products, and it's not apples to apples players. But I think
Shen and Falk, not apples to Garland and DeBrusk and
Braden Shen's three times the player of Connor
right.
Garland.
I would argue the Blues did a little better, but okay. And look, the Canucks GM is heading into the final year of his contract, and while he has a lot of company in fathering this failure, his dismissal could be most expedient for President of Hockey Operations Jim Rutherford and Chairman Francesco Aquilini as they try and deflect blame or provide cover for their responsibility in this Canucks mess. Anyways, that's our top story today. It is going to be a rocky road, I think, for Patrick. The good news for Patrick Allvin is he probably doesn't have to speak to the media again until the end of the season next month, right?
Yeah, I would guess he goes into hiding.
I'm going to guess we don't hear a lot from old PA over the next 4 to 6 weeks.
If you need joy, you'll probably have to go jump into the nostalgia machine to remember what joy for the Vancouver Canucks feels like. And while you're throwing it back, why don't you throw back some new beer from Neighborhood Brewing, the Throwback Cream Ale. It's a nod to the legendary BC Cream Ale days with that iconic smooth, easy drinking feel that you remember, amped up with a full-bodied malt profile, keeping things rich and rounded, and then you lay down a subtle mix of English and American hops for a clean, balanced finish. I remember the Cream Ale days. They were everywhere back then. Enjoy it again with the Throwback Cream Ale from Neighborhood.
Those of you on YouTube, that super chat button is always available to you. Hit it, make your donation, half proceeds to the BC Mental Health Foundation, and we'll make sure to get it on the program. We have a super chat pending here for from Canucks fan 9420. I think Shorty approves. We need to tank for at least one more year, a chance for Dupont, that's Landon Dupont, the defenseman with the Everett Silvertips, who has been compared to McCarr and Hughes. We then have a new franchise defenseman, then we can start building a contender. Yeah, here. Absolutely. If this is in relation to my Alex Tuck take, even with Alex Tuck, I think they're going to be horrible next year.
Oh, no one's suggesting that Alex Tuck makes you a playoff team. But
No.
you don't want to become 24th overall either. Like, you want to be 32nd. You want to be 31st at worst.
And that's good theoretically, Blake, but you know damn well that's not how managers and coaches and organizations operate, right? Like, they're going to go into next season with optimism. Everyone's a contender in preseason, right? They're going to go into the season looking to win games.
You think the San Jose Sharks went into the draft year of Macklin Celebrini going, let's try and win some games?
I
don't think there's a chance.
I think there are some rare exceptions where a team actively tries to be bad from the start of the year. In season, it happens all the time because you get evidence, you realize we ain't no good, and then you actively try and tank without actually admitting you're tanking. Although in some cases, particularly with NBA lineups night to night, it's plain as day obvious. And in the case of some NHL teams, that's also true.
I think the Canucks look at this. This was an accidental one. They accidentally ended up 32nd, but it's in an 8 out of 10 draft. If they think next year's a 9 out of 10 draft and you're already at the bottom, why are you going to work to climb out when you know that the best is yet to come?
They begin an 8-game homestand tonight, second 8-game homestand of the year versus the surging Senators. Brock Boeser, Evander Kane, and newcomer Curtis Douglas are all game-time decisions, according to Adam
We
Foote.
pointed this out at the beginning of the year. When the struggles started, 8-1. As soon as that downward trend, we're like, holy crap. If they get really bad, an 8-game homestand after the deadline.
2 8-game homestands in the second
But
half
after
of
the
the
deadline,
year.
it went according to Hoyle there.
Yeah.
We were like, oh my God, if they sell off, what is that going to look like?
Douglas certainly sounded like he's playing. More on him in a second. Liz Pettersson has gone 17 games without a goal, has not scored since the last time he faced the Ottawa Senators on January 13th. That was a 2-1 defeat. In Ottawa, he has 18 shots over his 17-game goalless drought. Senators are 8-1-2 under our old friend Travis Green in their last 11 as they try and hunt down a playoff spot. Friday, we talked about Curtis Douglas, the waiver claim from the Tampa Bay Lightnings that the Canucks make, who checks in at 6'9" and 240 pounds. Now, we can understand wanting to insulate young players, as Patrick Alvin said on Friday. He also said he'd been looking for this profile player for some time. Again, that's another one where I'm not quite sure I believe that. I'm going to guess you were looking for better players early in the season when you're looking to salvage, and then younger players as you were going in to the deadline. As we discussed Friday, this reeks of minor league hockey promotion. Come see the fights from an organization that knows it's not winning or can't sell winning. And that's especially the case with just 6 victories in 30 games at Rogers Arena this season. But here's Douglas, and he says he wants an opportunity to prove he's more than just a fighter.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think I'm really excited to be able to go out there and show that I can actually play and that I can do more than just go out there and be mean and add some other aspects to my game. And I'm just going to get out there and play simple and let the game come to me and just work as hard as I can and be a good teammate.
What did Adam and the rest of the coaching staff told you about the role you'll take on in this group?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're kind of playing it by day, but I mean, it's pretty quick here, so I'm kind of get comfortable and ready to play. And I think it's pretty simple for me. It's getting on the forecheck and making sure that if guys on the other team want to go back and get the puck, they're going to pay a price and just bringing that toughness and some passion, and hopefully the fans will like that too.
Couple of things there. I'm going to guess that's the biggest scrum he's ever done. And secondly, did you see him in relation to Bachelor? You could have like 3 Brendan Batchelor heads stacked on the Brendan Batchelor head, and still, I'm not sure, get to the height of Curtis Douglas.
He's a big boy.
This guy's a monster.
Now,
And as I said on Friday, it reeks of all of those, slap shot and all that. But for me, someone's going to be watching these games as a fan of hockey. Entertain me, fascinate me.
now I don't know where he should play, but with Ratu and O'Connor's a little odd for me. Like, O'Connor's one of the better players of late here for the Vancouver Canucks.
It's a big line. Wow.
It's a lot of reach.
O'Connor's 6'4", and what's Zatu? 6'2"?
6'2", maybe, yeah.
Oh, boy. He's also excited to be here. Here's big Curtis Douglas.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty special. Like I'm from Canada and I got family in Vancouver, so it's pretty cool to come back and see them and be in Canada again. I'm just really excited. The guys have been awesome and helping me get acclimated and just ready to go.
What do you make of the opportunity you have here and the role that you might play with this group?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know it's a younger, skilled group, and I think it'll be fun to kind of get in there and mix it up a little bit and be there for the younger guys and not let other teams push us around at all.
Does Bet365 have a prop on a Curtis Douglas fight tonight?
I didn't see that. Did not see that.
You can find that. It's a good bet. Canucks get 3 or 4 points from the weekend set. They beat Chicago 6-3 on Friday. They were good. They blow a 2-1 lead to the Jets late Saturday, fall 3-2 in Winnipeg in overtime. Linus Karlsson with a pair of points versus the Jets. He's now up to 5th place in team scoring with 28 points. There he is. He trails just Boeser, DeBrusk, Roenick, and Elias Pettersson. Let's hear from Linus. He'd gone quiet there for a little bit. Remember, we were singing his praises earlier in the season. He's happy to find his groove again.
I found some chemistry with Teddy and Sass. They helped me a lot. And yeah, confidence. Go through those areas, I know where I scores. And yeah, both Teddy and Sass.
And he's not wrong. The line of Karlsson, Blueger, and Sassone combined for 3 goals, 9 points over the weekend. Teddy had a pair of assists against Winnipeg. He added a goal against the Jets.
Matt, you talk
Blake's
about
favorite offensive player for the Vancouver Canucks. And Liam Ogren scores. He's up to 11 points in 32 games.
even with the drying out there of Linus Karlsson, the cooling down, if you will, he could still be the leading goal scorer on this team at season end. He's still within arm's reach of maybe 3rd in points. Like, it's still a really good year for him. He's a half point per game player effectively at 28 and 60. I mean,
and should get more ice time going forward, right?
yeah, if you had said Linus Karlsson at the outset of the season, he'll be a half point per game, where you'd be happy with that, you'd be ecstatic with that.
Absolutely. Boeser with a pair of goals, including the winner versus the Hawks. It was good to see the smile on Brock's face. Hasn't been a lot of that. We love his smile. We love his energy, his enthusiasm. He's an understated guy, but love it on the ice when he's smiling and hugging his teammates. Max Sassone, Marcus Pettersson, Jake DeBrusk all have 2-point nights versus the Hawks as well. The Canucks scored 6 goals in a game, second time all season.
2 with no goalie, but that's fine.
Fair enough. 6-2 win over Tampa in November was the only other 6-goal performance, and it was the first time the team had scored 5 in a game since a 5-4 win at Anaheim, also in November. Now, February was effectively a dark month with just 4 games, but the entirety of December, the entirety of January, they did not get up to 5 goals. Well, they did it on Friday, and I know the Senators team has been good, but they have got awful goaltending.
They do.
All
It's a chance for
season
goals.
long.
Yeah.
There's an opportunity, perhaps, for some goals here tonight against Travis Green.
On the scoring race, by the way, with those 2 for Boeser, he gets to 15 as well. So 15 for Boeser and Drew O'Connor. That's the scoring race for goals for the Vancouver Canucks right now. Do we have a 20-goal scorer in the group? We're going to find out.
We shall see. Kiefer Sherwood with 17 continues to lead the club.
Yes.
He's in San Jose now. Let's get to our menu. It's brought to you by Greta, a fantastic spot to pregame or postgame. You are mere steps from the stadium or the arena. It's also an awesome spot to host your next party, office party, work party, team party, family reunion. They have the private riser in the back, surrounded by screens, surrounded by the arcade with a game for everyone. and a very approachable menu of street food. You will love your time at Greta. So for more information or to book your event, go to gretabar.com, Greta 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin. We will speak to Darren Dreger coming up here on all things deadline related, wrapping up the Canucks activity, inactivity, and what we saw across the National Hockey League. And then Gaffar of RinkWide Vancouver and DFO Insider, Wednesdays here on the Nation Network. More on the deadline and the point forward for the Vancouver Canucks. Later in the program, the Vancouver Whitecaps just continue winning and continue to make it look easy. Boy, what a juxtaposition they are right now with their neighbors at Rogers Arena, because just everything goes right for this team. But because they have constructed a very good team where things tend to fall into place when you have that much talent and that much player development going on. Seahawks lose their Super Bowl hero. We will get into the early happenings of NFL free agency. We'll talk some lacrosse with the Vancouver Warriors, the Rugby Sevens, and of course all the basketball, both university and high school, where there were some charming stories at the LEC on the weekend with the BC Boys Provincial Championships. All of that is coming up on today's edition of Sekeres and Price. It is time now for our Bet365 bets of the day. I'm going to guess you lost your bet on the weekend.
No,
because you didn't come in here crowing about it.
No, I did win it, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah, I forget what it was, but I remember thinking, oh, good, I got another win.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Why don't you take
Put me down for a victory.
Okay, take the tee.
It's a lower number now than would have been 2 weeks ago, but using the old best time to plant an orchard 20 years ago, second best time today, get on board with the Sabres. I don't think they can win the Stanley Cup. I think the Stanley Cup winner is going to be in the West, most likely the Colorado Avalanche. But the Buffalo Sabres to win the East and get to the final is plus 750 right now.
Yeah, it's good value on a team that
would have been better value 2 weeks ago, but it's still pretty darn good.
Well, it would have been great value in October, November.
Yes.
When they were stinking the joint up. Liam Ogren played a career-high 17:57 Saturday and scored a goal. And with Boeser and Kane, game-time decisions should get plenty of opportunity against a team that has suffered from bad goaltending all season long. Ogren is plus 550 as an anytime goal scorer, so I love the value there as well.
I had the Canucks beating Chicago.
The segment of presentation of Bet365 for those of you scoring at home. Whatever your bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app, get in on the game, use code NATION when doing so. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. Darren Dreger coming up next. Sekeres and Price from the historic Wall Center, and we welcome in insider, podcaster, thespian, Mr. Darren Dreger.
Yes, thespian, yes. Well done, sir.
How are you?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, had a couple of days to catch my breath and recharge my battery and phone batteries and all of that. And ready for the final 20-game push or so of the regular season. All good.
That's what people don't get. Just because there was no trades doesn't mean insiders were quiet. They're calling.
It's worse.
It's worse in some ways. You're right.
It is worse because, again, based on the market, the number of players that we knew were in play, it felt like or feels like when you're in that, there's got to be something that we're missing here.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So, you grind away, but you pick probably 5, maybe 10 priority guys. And you work all angles of that, whether it's from sources close to the player, obviously the team, potential teams of interest, and you grind from that point. But thank God for Duthie and the crew, crack production staff, because, as I've gotten older in this process, there was a day, probably a decade or so ago, when I think Bobby Mack and I would get annoyed at all the shenanigans going on in the studio. Like, you're looking around and you're seeing mascots, bouncing through the halls and llamas in the parking lot and just frivolous nonsense. And you're trying to be serious because it's a serious time of year and we're grinding our sources and then I'm watching on Friday and I'm like, you know what? Good for these guys. I'm glad they're here. And, somebody like Jeff O'Neill who just embraces what the day has become. And the truth is, it's more about the entertainment side of it now than it is actually the breaking news and the analysis of the trades. Because, even with the promise of all those players in play, it didn't come to fruition on Friday. So if as a network, you're going to try and keep the eyeballs tuned in for a duration of time, you better have something else. So credit to Duthie and all the people behind the scenes.
Yeah, if you don't have the bread, break in the circuses. And there was a good
amount.
There was a good amount of circus on Friday. Oh, so you say it was 19 trades on deadline day, Dregs. Why do you think it turned out so quiet in the end?
A couple of reasons. The number of players in play. I think that staggered the market a little bit, right? So the other thing was so many teams had cap space. And, your cap teams weren't up against it. And we talked earlier in the day about the fact that you can't double retain any longer in the new CBA and whether or not that had any influence. And I don't think that it actually did, because there were teams available that, were shopping their cap space. And normally around the trade deadline, that's a commodity. That's something that teams would pay for, right? And it really never did kind of materialize. And the other thing, too, is there were some big pieces that were in play. Look at St. Louis alone. Robert Thomas, Colton Parayko, neither guy got traded, but came close to getting traded. Well, if you're a team that's in the market for a centerman and you feel like you need a 2 or a 3, Robert Thomas is at the very least a number 2. So you exhaust that until you know that, okay, well, there's no deal to be made there. And then you look at who your number 3 is. And I'll give you Exhibit A, and that's Colorado. Colorado and Calgary did the dance on Nazem Kadri. They did. And then it just got to a point where my understanding is Chris McFarland said, okay, well, I'm not waiting on Calgary to decide if they can retain or whether or not the deal is good enough. I'm going to pivot here. And he did. And he paid a 1st and a 5th for Nick Waugh. There is zero chance that Brad Treliving thought he was getting a 1st-round draft pick and plus for Nicholas Waugh. Just didn't think it was ever going to materialize. And it did. Okay, well, there's another center off the market. And then that clouded things up with Calgary again on Kadri. And those close to Nazem Kadri, when the deadline passed at 3 o'clock Eastern on Friday, real close to Naz, didn't think he had been traded. Oh, wow. And then it did. Even though Calgary and Colorado obviously had been talking for most of the day on Friday, it didn't come together until very late. So when you've got principal players like that in play, imagine what that does to the list of the guys lower down.
Wow. Calgary made the last 2 deals of the day, the Kadri deal and the Brendan Othman
and
deal.
And the Kadri one came in at 1.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad the trade happens because it's fun to talk about these trades. But, does the NHL care that all this stuff comes up? I can understand it leaking to 12:20 just because of a backup, but a full hour after? What's going on there?
Yeah, it's just a trade queue. That's what it is. I can tell you that even the Scott Laughton trade to the Los Angeles Kings, there was a point there, guys, where we were sitting around going, okay, we got to watch this very closely because both teams had concerns as to whether or not that trade got in on time. And by in on time, I would think that there would have to be some electronic marking that shows, okay, it was sent to Central Registry at 2:59 p.m. Eastern.
Right.
That's in advance of 3 p.m., right? There would have to be that marking. But I know LA had concerns as to whether or not they got that thing in on time. And then Brad Treliving did his media availability before the trade call. So that's how backed up Central Registry was. So I guess in theory, you could expand the department on certain days, right? You know, July 1st being one and free agent frenzy being the other, and just have more people capable and available to, you know, make sure that those trades are processed properly.
It's like going to the polls on voting day. The poll may close at 7, but if you're in line before 7, they got to take your vote. So no, and in today's world with email, absolutely, you got a timestamp on it. That's good enough. Okay, let's turn our attention to the Vancouver Canucks. Dregs. Their big deal came in the day before trade deadline day. Connor Garland to Columbus for a second and third. Tell us how all this came about. And you know, we know there's a big, long contract extension there for a 30-year-old player, but there's a lot of people in this market who thought, that's kind of a middling return for a pretty good player. Not many bargains last week. It looks like Columbus got a bargain. You tell us how all that came together.
Well, again, we just talked about the Kadri deal, right? And that came in under the wire. But look at what the Calgary Flames got in return for Nazem Kadri, who was much older. And, you know, even though he only has 3 years remaining on his contract, they're still problematic, which is why salary retention at 20% was so key in all of that. The Garland thing was interesting based on how it developed. But I can tell you from both sides, Columbus was a team of interest for a while. You know, this didn't just happen, didn't just manifest, you know, within hours. And Garland was thrilled to be going to Columbus. Whether or not it was top choice, it was up there. It was up there. And I think that was based on fit and a lot of different things, right? So, you know, for the Vancouver Canucks to pull the trigger in the way that they did, doesn't that kind of tell us here, guys, that there just wasn't that strong of a market for Garland? With all due respect, you know, Columbus, they're scratching and clawing, trying to lock down a playoff spot, right? And they would look at Garland, you know, feisty forward who, you know, does have offensive pop and all those things as being a missing piece to help him do that. But again, based on level of return, it's not like Patrick Galvin was swatting away offers. He wasn't. And, you know, even though they had time for Connor Garland and keeping him in Vancouver, we know what it's all about. It's about collecting the assets, but also getting off some of the money. And they were successful in doing that here.
Guy hasn't scored on a goaltender in 3 months. Career low points. I mean, and a 6-year contract extension. I understand it. How many times did you hear another player with term mentioned connected to the Vancouver Canucks, be it Boeser or DeBrusk or anybody? Was that really quiet?
No, it was very quiet. And the only time we'd hear his name is if we asked that specific question. And you know, I didn't like some of the stuff around Jake DeBrusk. Like, to say that there's no interest in that player, I think is a bit unfair. But I always say the same, like, you know, making deals with players under contract, players with term in season is hard. It's more palatable in the off season because you've potentially got more teams in play, right? You have a better handle on what the financial world looks like and all of those things. I think there were a couple of calls, but let's just qualify it as tire kicking on Brock Boeser. I don't think that ever got beyond that. And I would say that likewise with Pettersson. I didn't get any sort of sense last week that there was anything developing on those three guys. You know, like Teddy Blueger is interesting. I felt pretty strongly that he was going to be traded. I know that the players and the coaching staff are glad he wasn't traded because he's a competitive guy. He's good in the room. He's all of those things. So, you know, if you're a teammate or you're part of the coaching staff, you got to be able to ice as competitive a team on a nightly basis as you possibly can for the duration of the year. And guys like Teddy Blueger make you that much more competitive. And look, I mean, let's just talk about Evander Kane now, right? Like, what was it? 2 weeks ago, I said to you guys, I thought that Evander Kane was likely going to be traded that week. Well, that was based on what the Vancouver Canucks were dealing with in the moment and the expectation that he was going to be traded. And I just think that maybe there were, again, so many other options for teams to consider that they didn't bother. Like I look at the work that the Vegas Golden Knights did. The hockey side of Evander Kane, I think in a short window you could see, but then all of a sudden, Cole Smith surfaces from the Nashville Predators. I mean, Cole Smith's a nice player. I mean, he's a hard forechecking physical forward who's going to help them in their bottom six. And honestly, I think that that's how the market absolutely dried up on Evander Kane. And I knew that they were going to have a problem moving him on Friday when nothing happened. When, Thursday, there was a bit of a flurry, right? When the roster expansion happened, I think Vancouver was hopeful, if not confident, that something on Kane would get done, and it didn't. So, with nothing brewing Friday morning, it seemed unlikely at that point he was going to be moved.
Would it surprise you if the Vancouver Canucks healthy scratched Evander Kane a little bit down the stretch here? UFA to B.
No.
He's got his 1,000th game coming up. I'm sure they feel a little bit obligated to get him to that point. But beyond that, I mean, what are they going to do with him?
Yeah. No, I'll answer your question. It wouldn't surprise me if he were healthy scratched. I guess the flip side, how healthy is he? Player that age with miles on the chassis, all of that. You can, I'm not going to say invent, because now you're talking about cap circumvention and all that nonsense, but those older players always have something bugging them, something nagging. Maybe that is materialized. I mean, if they talked about Douglas, is he playing? That's the
hasn't played yet.
Yeah.
Hasn't played yet. Yes.
Yeah, he's going to play very, very, very soon. He's going to play. So, maybe that's a spot in the lineup.
Did you get a sense, Dregs, no Blueger trade, no Kane trade? They did make Garland and Myers play. Did you get a sense of how all this landed at Canucks Sports and Entertainment? Like how happy or disappointed they are in the deadline and the way it played out?
I didn't get a specific read. I think surprised. From my Vancouver sources, I kept getting it's a weird market. It's a weird time. It's hard to pinpoint what is going on here. And I think that a lot of teams feel the same. I mean, ask Brad Treliving. He was as down as I've ever seen him with his media responsibilities Friday night. I mean, he didn't feel like they did enough. And collectively, I think they did fine with the assets that were, collected, draft picks and everything else. So, I'm sure Vancouver has a level of disappointment. But Vancouver we know what the direction of the Vancouver Canucks is, right? But again, if you're disappointed that you weren't able to get somebody to bite on contracts like DeBrusk or Boeser or Pettersson, like, let's be real for a moment. Right? You get calls of inquiry earlier in the process, but it's hard to make those deals in season for a lot of different reasons. So, it just means that Patrick Galvin is going to have to continue to reshape and potentially tear this team apart on the draft floor and through the better part of next offseason.
Trading two guys with term and Myers and Garland, to me, that part, that's a B+.
Agreed.
Like that part's fine. What I don't get is Teddy Blueger. Like, Teddy Blueger has maybe never played hockey as well as he is currently. He's of zero obligation financially to you and money going forward. Like, for the life of me, I don't know why, of 18 playoff teams and then maybe the two chase teams. So we're talking like 22 teams.
Yeah.
Theoretically, have playoff aspirations. Nobody wanted Teddy Blueger like that. I can't understand it. I don't get it.
I think that there could have been something done there. I mean, it's pretty obvious that if it were a draft pick that they liked, whatever round that is, they would have made that trade. I mean, it's not like they were protecting this guy just purely based on what I said earlier about trying to stay as competitive as you can. I mean, I do appreciate having to be mindful of protecting your young players, right? And that's the very reason why Zach Whitecloud and Blake Coleman, with the Calgary Flames, that's why. I mean, I'm told Craig Conroy told me this flat out on Friday. They had amazing offers for Zach Whitecloud. Now, they love him in the sense that he's a good hockey player. Start there. He's got mentoring qualities that they're going to need with a young blue line. Indigenous background, and the Indigenous community around Calgary has absolutely embraced Zach Whitecloud. That matters. It matters. And Coleman, they had good offers, not great, good offers. That too surprises me. And Blake Coleman's not having the greatest of his years either, right? But he's a utility knife. And I really thought that somebody would make them. So honestly, Blake, to come back to Teddy Blueger, I think that's probably the way it boiled down. They're looking at it and going, okay, well, as a 4th or a 5th round draft pick, is it going to move the needle for us in any way, shape, or form? And, maybe you do have ownership involvement there a little bit in just saying, we can't just gift players away. Some of the contract guys, okay, I get it. Now you're saving me money as the owner. But we do have a responsibility to our season ticket holders to at least try and keep it competitive.
And a couple of things to add there. There was clearly blood in the water around the Canucks. I think they reeked of desperations. Managers knew that and offered accordingly. So if they did draw a line on Blueger, okay, so be it. The thing on Whitecloud, he's 29-year-old right shot defenseman with 2 more years of term beyond this one. Like, there's a world where Calgary's competitive in a couple of years and where Whitecloud is a part of that team. So I get that as well. You broke the Tyler Myers trade. We heard there were 3 destinations, Sunny and Cup contenders that Myers was willing to go to, and Dallas stepped up. Tell us how the Myers file played out.
Dallas was the target all along. All along, Dallas was the destination of choice. And it's a weird one, right? Like, not to revisit the whole Parayko unraveling with Buffalo, but we report information that we know is accurate and timely. And leading up to the trade deadline, you almost have to do a play-by-play of how a trade is coming together, right? And sometimes it helps and sometimes it hurts. Now, the difference between Myers and Parayko is that Detroit stepped in early. They stepped in early. And so Tyler Myers had enough time to allow the process to play out. But it was right at crunch time there because Tyler Myers didn't want to do wrong by the Detroit Red Wings. He either wanted, look, if Dallas didn't find a way to get that done, I think Myers would have waived to go to Detroit. I do. I think he would have just said, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to leave them high and dry. But there was enough nibbling going on by Jim Nill that JP Barry, who represents Tyler Myers, said, okay, well, we just got to wait a little bit longer, just a little bit longer. But it's not just I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall. Look at owners, they're in this game because they want to win the Stanley Cup. Tom Gillardi wants to win the Stanley Cup more than anything. The Aquilinis want to win the Stanley Cup, right? I mean, that's what it's all about. But you can be adversaries in that process. And so this, I think, would have been a delicate one for Patrick Allvin to have to dance with, because I don't know that Aquilini loves the idea of retaining so that Tyler Myers can play for Tom Gillardi and the Dallas Stars. So it's kind of an interesting one, but I'm sure there were tire kickers, but Dallas was the team of choice.
All right. Last question, and it's a tough one. We sat here and we watched Cecil B. Duthie DeMille's epic there on trade deadline day, the Bobby Mack inspired.
The
Rolodex, yes. Yeah. The Bobby Mack's Rolodex short film. And we're sitting there and we went, wait a second. They cast Dreger as the jester in all of this? Yeah. You've got LeBrun at your disposal, and you've got Dreger as the guy taking the hits.
Well, to be fair, LeBrun
Mack
came off as the booze hound because he was stuck in the wine rack. Remember, he had to be called off the wine rack. So they both took hits to the personality.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Tell us how you got cast in this thing.
Yeah. Well, I didn't have a choice, really. James decided that I was doing this. Yeah. So the two things that stuck out to me, and look, I mean, the way Jeff O'Neill puts himself out there, like you have to be able to embrace humility every once in a while and just live with the entertainment value that is attached to it. And O'Neill does that better than anyone in our hockey department. He does. He doesn't mind being the point of the joke. He doesn't. So in this case, the two things that stuck out to me were Bobby Mack, Devin, like, come on, man. I've known Bob McKenzie longer than anyone in that entire group. And then the other one, of course, was me on the phone. Okay, you got to get me out of here. GMs don't take my calls. I'm not Bob, like, all right.
Yeah.
It was good fun. It was good fun. It was creative genius of James Duthie and Matt Cade, who's behind the scenes, an award-winning producer, by the way. So it was at Coppenwood Golf Course, a clubhouse not that far away.
Yeah.
But you can envision the Bobby Mack estate. And Bob has moved several times and he's downsized because, obviously he's in retirement now. I don't think Bobby Mack ever had a palatial estate like that. Maybe close.
But what I will say is quite accurate is the goblet of wine that he was swirling about. We have seen that act in Penticton at Young Stars, so that was right on character. And we also noticed that O'Neill's role did not force him to leave set nor change costumes, and we didn't think that was a coincidence either, Dregs.
No, very, very, very true.
Good agent. That's a good agent.
It was a good day. It was lots of fun.
It was. Great stuff, my friend, and thank you for deadline season. We take a little bit of a break here with Darren, let him catch his breath. Yeah. Of course, this trade activity winds down, and we'll catch back up in the off season, my friend. Thanks for this, Dregs.
Thanks, guys.
Sick Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center. We're joined by Gaffar, co-host of RinkWide Vancouver. DFO Insiders Weekly with David Pagnotta. And Irf, we talked a week ago wondering what this deadline would look like for the Canucks. And already then it was shaping up as, maybe it will be a little quieter. And then the Myers trade drops, and then the Connor Garland trade drops, but pretty quiet on deadline day. Overall thoughts and impressions on what the Canucks did at the NHL's 2026 deadline.
Yeah, it was interesting because I think leading up to the deadline, everyone was looking at the Canucks being like, watch this team. They're going to get rid of everybody. It's going to be an absolute fire sale. The Bluegers of the world are going to be gone. Kampf, Garland, Myers, maybe even Boeser. Everybody's going somewhere. And unfortunately for them, they weren't able to get more done than just Myers and Garland, which I thought were two pieces of good business. But since the Quinn Hughes trade, Matt, the Canucks have acquired 9 total draft picks. That's 5 this season, including 5 in this year's draft. So they have 10 right now. First time since 2003, the Canucks have had 10 picks in the same draft. That's some pretty good business for this season for them. Also, 4 extra picks acquired as well in 2027 and 2028. So the deadline may have been an absolute dud for the Vancouver Canucks, but what they've done in totality in this season, heading into this draft, which will be very important for this franchise, isn't so bad.
Is it a direction that the fan base will accept? Sorry, not the direction, the strength of direction, if you will. Do you think this has been enough to placate the majority at the very least?
I think so. I think that now where you look and talk to people, everyone's on board with this rebuild. And I think that more and more people are starting to understand that it ain't going to be 2 or 3 years. This is going to be 4, or maybe even a little bit later than that. You are tied into right now Zeev Bium, Marco Rossi. You look at Tom Willander. These are very young players right now that are going to be the next core of this team. They aren't going to be superstars in the next 1 or 2 seasons. They're going to need time to grow and grow with each other and in the National Hockey League too. And the all-important day, I mean, let's be honest, guys. The most important day in franchise history coming up is the draft lottery. You win that, you set yourself up for a little bit, whether it's Gavin McKenna or Ivar Stenberg, whoever you seem to like more, but you get number 1, that changes things dramatically as well.
It's a team that still could do some work, obviously. There's still some veterans with term that, really don't have much of a purpose outside of leadership on this team going forward. They probably feel like they could win a Stanley Cup elsewhere in their last remaining prime years. How much activity do you expect in June?
I think it's going to be interesting. I think the Elias Pettersson conversation will be revisited for sure. I just think you open up to a lot more teams in and around the draft and into the summer and things like that. You're not only dealing with 8 to 10 teams when you look at Elias Pettersson when it comes to the trade deadline. You're opening that up to 31 teams in the National Hockey League. Brock Boeser is an interesting one for me. There was little to no action around him around the trade deadline. Whether he would waive or not, that's a totally different question, but not much interest there for a guy like him. And then, you look at other guys, Philip Hronek, a lot of talk about him potentially being the next captain of this team. We'll see where that goes. I'm not entirely sure if I think that that's the right decision, but we'll see what the Canucks decide to do there. And then beyond that, they need to insulate these young players with other good veterans. I think Teddy Blueger is going to get a new contract here in Vancouver. They love what he's doing. They like his leadership a lot. Philip Hedl, what's the future the question marks are going to be around that player as well? Is he going to be the guy that they might have to talk to and be like, hey man, permanent LTIR here, like just for your safety and, your future well-being, this might not be a good idea with the amount of head injuries that he has had. And then other than that, you look down the roster, there isn't really too much. So the Canucks are going to have to add, but they're going to have to add good vets if you have this young of a team. Who are you going to insulate Gavin McKenna with? Who do you want around Zeev Biyum? Who do you want around these players? Because right now, this core and what's left of it, I don't know. I think there's some question marks around it as well.
Do you think there was anything? Do you think they were close at all on Drew O'Connor? His name sort of went quiet right towards the end of the deadline.
I think it was loud in the week leading up. I think he had some pretty good showings just before the deadline. And then we got to the deadline and you know what? It was very quiet for the Vancouver Canucks after, they did the Connor Garland deal on the Thursday night. Before deadline Friday, it got very quiet. And Patrick Allvin said it. We had no offers, whether it was Teddy Blueger or Evander Kane. I don't even think that there was offers on really any of their other players either. So I believe wholeheartedly that, just talking to some other people around the league, that they didn't have much going on for any of their players, whether that teams didn't like their players, whether there was no interest, or whether the asking price was going to be too high and they just knew it. There was very little conversation there.
I wonder, guys. I wonder, like under normal circumstances, you wouldn't think of extending Drew O'Connor because he'd be one of those great assets to flip at the trade deadline.
You've got time. Before you say it, Blake, you've got time. He's under contract next year. Let it play out till next year.
I know, but I wonder if they get scared by how quiet this trade deadline was and say, oh, it's unlikely.
That works so well with the Garland and Demko extensions.
Yeah, I know, but I wonder if that's where they go.
Same question on Boeser. Irf, do you think there was any activity at the end of the day on Boeser?
No, I don't. I think it was very, very, very quiet. I think that there was a thought that, the Canucks would have some interest on this player. He obviously had the line of all lines. He's been saying it since 2024 or 2022 that, it's not a deadline unless my name is in it. But I don't think that there was much of anything. And again, he's got full control there. His agent obviously, saying that, again, he's a member of the Vancouver Canucks, wants to be here, wants to grow his family here. So the Canucks just might be in on that for the foreseeable future. Now, does he become a buyout candidate at the end of his contract? We'll see what happens. But we know what happens with speed and the NHL and the way the game is going. And Brock, traditionally just isn't a fast guy. He can put the puck in the net, absolutely. But I'm not entirely sure how his speed's going to hold up in a few years.
Go back a year, Allvin, bemoaning what was offered to him for Brock Boeser. And then a couple of months later, they sign him to 7 by 7.25. Like, the market spoke to you on Boeser, and on July 1st, you went, no, let's go max term, 7.25.
Yeah.
DeBrusk, did you hear anything on DeBrusk?
Nope. Nothing. And the thing about that is there was some interest around him kind of leading up, and people said that, okay, he would like a change of scenery and things like that. I mean, I was one of them. I think that he would have been open to it if there was an opportunity. The Edmonton Oilers was the obvious connection there. There's no way that they would have been able to make it work either. So the news coming out of Edmonton, like they weren't even going to try because they weren't going to figure that out. But who knows what happens in the summer with him? I think that honestly, he still might be open to a change if that is the possibility. I mean, you heard what he said to Ben Kuzma. I'm not entirely sure he wants to be a part of this rebuild, and then he walked it back a little bit, but he said what he did say. And I think that for a player his age and where he is in his career, obviously winning is important to him. And you just know, looking at the rest of the term of your contract and the way that the trajectory of this team and how it's going to go in the next few seasons, winning at a very high level may not happen here.
What do you think of, well, no Jonathan Lekramacky the rest of the way because of his surgery. The Vancouver Canucks still do have a couple of guys down on the farm that they would like to look at, I would guess. How green does this lineup get on a night-to-night basis towards the end of the season, or do they just save that for next year and let these guys percolate? I mean, it's not like Abbotsford is playing that great either. Like, there's not a lot of winning environments happening in this Canucks organization right now. But what do you think it looks like at the NHL level here?
Man, I hate that injury for Jonathan Lekramacky. I like the experience that he got last year playing in Abbotsford. It was great, but then it hurt him growing in the summer. Like, Jonathan Lekramacky needs to put on some weight. He needs to put on some muscle. He needs to be able to hang in the NHL. And it's shown right now that he can snipe at the American League level because he's faster, he's quicker than a lot of these guys. But you get to the NHL, it's a lot bigger and it's a lot more physical. And Jonathan Lekramacky needs to put on some muscle. He needs to put on some weight. He needs to get in the lab, and this injury is going to hurt him. It's a 6-month recovery for a shoulder surgery injury, and he's supposed to come into training camp and be this bigger guy that's packed on some pounds and be ready to compete in the NHL. It's going to hurt him a little bit. So I don't like that injury for him. Other than bringing guys up, I think that right now you look at it and you have Achu Ratu up. You got a guy like Linus Karlsson who's probably never going back there. And then you've got guys like Max Sasson who's hopefully going to push for a spot every day in the NHL next season on this team. But beyond that, looking down the list, you got to go even lower. Like, your sights are set on your young guys right now. Your Braden Coots of the world, and whoever you're going to get in this draft. I just think that there's not entirely too much there in Abbotsford that's going to push for a roster spot next season. I think that they're going to want to fill out what they have left over with the guys that they currently have, the auditions for the young guys in that bottom 6, and then go and try and get and acquire some veterans in free agency or trade, because his free agent class stinks too.
College free agents coming up too, right? And it sounds like they're interested in a couple of those.
Yeah, that right shot centerman Jordan Gross, St. Cloud State, available here because his team's not going dancing. How do you think things play out from here with Evander Kane?
I think the ice time you're going to start to see come down a little bit, and absolutely it should. I think that where they are, like I've talked about in development and wanting to see what you have in these young guys, you have to see what you have at the NHL level. Teams knew what they were going to get from Evander Kane if they wanted Evander Kane. They didn't need to look at games. You didn't need to send scouts to games to look at a 35-year-old. You know what you were going to get. The guy's a proven goal scorer in the National Hockey League. He did help Edmonton in the playoffs. Was one of their best playoff performers a couple seasons ago. But again, there was nothing going there on deadline day. The Canucks couldn't give players away even when they were willing to retain. So the no offer thing was definitely legit. I think you're going to see a situation where the ice time just starts to go down a little bit. I think Jeff did the math on this. His 1,000th game would be the end of March in Calgary. So the celebration here in Vancouver would probably be after that game. 1,000 games is an incredible feat in the National Hockey League, and the Canucks definitely will have that ceremony on the ice and do that if he does get there. But I'm not entirely sure we're going to see Evander Kane ice time numbers like it was early in the season, getting up to 19, 20 minutes a game.
I mean, the fact that he's the fact that he's not at the game day skate today, leading most people to believe he's not playing. I mean, is there a chance he's just played his last game for the Canucks, or is that too rash?
I don't know. I think that he might have games where he sits, but I think they'll get him to that 1,000 game mark. I do. I think that they are going to get to that at some point this season. Whether he's going to come out and play for a contract and things like that. I mean, teams know what he has to offer. He doesn't have anything to prove. He's not going to go out there and have to prove himself and show to get. That's what this season was supposed to be for. Nothing's going to change in the final 20 games here for Evander Kane. So I think that if he doesn't play, I still believe that, he's going to get to that 1,000 game mark, but we'll have to wait and see what happens.
All right, partner, are you in with Jeff tonight?
I am in Jeff tonight. I think I've got the brunt of the games this month with Jeff, so we're stretching. We're going all the way.
8 in a row, buddy. Get excited
This
at
is
home
why you're
here.
a pro. This is where
Senators,
you earn
Predators,
your
Kraken.
money.
Let's go this
Find
week.
a story. Find a
Hey,
storyline.
man. Daylight savings is going to kick our ass in next season when you have 8:30 local time starts. So,
Right, you are. Irf, thanks for this. Appreciate all the work at Deadline.
all right, gentlemen, be well.
Secure some price from the historic Wall Center in the Nation Network studio built by Arbor Lee. The real win happens after the final buzzer. Stay downtown, stay comfortable, stay close to everything here at the Sheraton Vancouver Wall Center. Your game day home base starts at wallcenter.com. Vancouver Whitecaps FC own Providence Park in Portland. It's true. They have the deeds somewhere in their commercial offices in Gastown. They should just pick up that facility and drop it at the PNE, because every time the Caps enter the Timbers Stadium, they dominate.
I've actually had
And it's a great stadium, too. Like, it's got so much character.
I've actually had a similar thought to what happened there. That's a baseball stadium that's been converted. We've talked about that before. I've thought about that with Hastings Park. Keep the Hastings grandstand and build that into whatever you build out there. Have some history. It's not. It doesn't have quite as much character as this place does, but
Yeah.
But you know, you could at least have
it
as a
sort of
shtick.
reminds me of an old like English football stadium, the pens that they would have in the end.
Yeah.
Standing
I
pens,
think it
right?
would be
Which
fun.
proved to be pretty dangerous. And
Obviously, the team on the pitch, the Timbers, is the biggest reason you win or lose on any given day. But because it is such an intimate atmosphere, you would think it'd be a tough place to play in, but not so much for the Vancouver Whitecaps.
they beat their Cascadia rivals 4-1. They've won 4 in a row at Providence Park, the last 3 by a combined 13-2 score. You got 4-1, 4-1, and 5-0 in there. And we went to a game down there a number of years ago on the Caps charter. They brought a lot of media down. And let me just say that those Portland fans were not all that kind to us. Like, they were quite upset that there was a significant number of Caps fans in the building that day, especially after Vancouver took a 1-0 lead on that afternoon.
There's a good throng again for this one.
Yeah, Caps on tour.
And the Caps made a point of, after every goal, to go to that group and give them a salute.
So, they remain undefeated in 2026. Now, 4 wins and a draw over 5 matches across all competitions. 3-0 in MLS League play, tied atop the Western Conference with 3 other undefeated sides. And all of that has Blake Price decreeing them a wagon.
Well, here's the thing. They looked very scattered in the early goings of this season. They do not look scattered
No, they
anymore.
do not.
Like, they got away with a few results early on there. They are not getting away with results
They were
now.
just plainly the better team Saturday.
Yeah, and this is the kind of magic we
Against
saw.
a pretty good team, a pretty good franchise, as you say, in a place that should be tough to play in, and it looked very easy for.
This is a redux to last year, where the chemistry was undeniable. I was a little bit worried about Brian White's start. I am no longer worried about Brian White's start. Just
2
like-
goals for Brian White, now firmly in second place on the Caps' all-time goal-scoring list. This is across all their history, too, not just MLS. Tristan Blackman, Sebastian Berhalter also score. They get singles. So the stars come out beyond Thomas
and
Muller.
beautiful goals, too.
Yes.
Like, really nice. The only problem with the start, I'll say, is everybody in the West is good.
Yeah.
4 teams undefeated, as you talked about, a 3-0. 3 more teams are 2-1. You start the season 2-1, you're very happy with that. Well, 7 teams out of the 9 that are in the playoff bracket are at least 2-1. In the East, there's 2 teams that are 2-0-1. That's at the top. 2-1 gets you 3rd place in the East. 2-1 could put you in 7th in the West. So they're going to have to be good all season long. I think San Jose could fall off, but San Diego, LAFC. I think Seattle will find its footing. There's going to be some tough outs.
Surrey's Javen Bodwell continues to earn the trust of Jesper Sorensen. He started at wing in this match. It was such a blowout that newcomer Mihail Gerasimenkov made his Caps debut coming on for Tate Johnson at left back. The Moldovan had starred for Cavalry in the CPL last year. So they just continue to find players. They continue to develop players. They continue to get form and quality out of players. This is just a masterclass that continues from Axel Schuster and Jesper Sorensen on team building and chemistry. It is delightful to watch, and we encourage you to do so Wednesday at BC Place as the Caps play host to their other Cascadia rivals, the Seattle Sounders.
Thursday.
Thursday. Yeah. As the Caps play host to their other Cascadia rivals, the Seattle Sounders, in the opening leg of a round 2 tie in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Should also mention they have moved the weekend's MLS match, Minnesota, to Sunday, 1:30 at BC Place. That match was originally on the Saturday, but when the Caps advanced in the CONCACAF Champions Cup,
and
I here to push it back to give a little more rest time.
Yeah,
between matches.
I guess they couldn't get the Wednesday date, which would have been normal for the Champions Cup, or Champions Cup requested they go on Thursday. If it's a Wednesday match versus Seattle, they'd probably keep it on Saturday, but because it's a Thursday, they want to get that extra day, obviously.
Canadian women's team needs a shootout to beat Argentina on penalties. Great work by the keeper. In the finale of the She Believes Cup, they win 2 of the 3 matches. They fall to the Americans. They scored a ton of goals against Colombia. They scored 4 goals. We're like, they got to score goals. They haven't been able to score goals. They were shut out in 5 straight to end 2025. They couldn't score goals. Bugaboo cropped up again. That went 0-0 into penalties. Canadian women have Zambia, Korea, and Brazil next month.
And you want to have more than one, great. The Colombia match was great for Canada. And they played well versus the United States, but we need to know that they can score goals. And back-to-back shutouts, not great.
You've been talking about the men's team and the rash of injuries to center backs, and Luc de Fougerolles got a knock on the weekend. French-sounding name, Englishman, qualifies as Canadian, and you were talking about maybe having to rely on him if some of these injuries to Cornelius and others at center back didn't heal in time for the World Cup or even the pre-World Cup window here.
Yeah. And then Alphonso Davies did not get the call. He was not in the squad for the weekend, but he is going to be in the squad for Bayern tomorrow versus Atalanta in the Champions League. So he's on the comeback trail. We'll see how much time he gets, but he didn't end up getting the tap for Bayern on the weekend.
NFL new league year, free agency is upon us. A major player movement has begun with a predictable but still hurtful blow to the defending champion Seattle Seahawks. The Super Bowl MVP, running back Kenneth Walker III, is joining Kansas City in free agency. Now, it had been predicted the day after the Super Bowl. Captain Greg Bell of the News Tribune in Tacoma said to us, just watch, guys, he's gone. They have already lost their opportunity to re-sign him because they weren't all that fussy about contract extension during this season. Now, we knew Andy Reid was going to try and improve that Kansas City running game. Some wondered if they would take Notre Dame star tailback Jeremiah Love with that 9th overall pick in the draft. Instead, they go the free agent route. It's a 3-year deal, can be worth up to $45-50 million, with nearly $30 million guaranteed. Of course, running backs don't hit paydays very often anymore in the NFL, and this is a big one for Kenneth Walker III. And it is a little bit, and look, as we're recording this, the Seahawks have not backfilled yet, with no pun intended, with a running back in free agency. So for the moment, no Walker and no Zach Charbonnet early in the season, at least not likely after that significant ACL injury and surgery.
Yeah, a little concerning. Surely they're going to have to get somebody to run the football.
Yeah. Only 4 draft picks. You anticipate Schneider will probably trade back out of round 1. It's the 32nd and final pick of the first round, as he has done many times in the
unless
past.
they're
I
convinced
think you need more draft capital than 4 picks.
Unless they are convinced that they've seen enough in practice that they think they can rehabilitate Cam Akers.
Yeesh, I'd be very, very surprised. I mean, they have a couple of deep reserves there who haven't touched the ball. Anyways, we shall see. Their coveted pass rusher, Max Crosby, is off to Baltimore, traded from the Raiders. The Ravens give up 2 first-round picks, including the number 14 overall selection in next month's draft, to the Raiders to pair with quarterback Fernando Mendoza, who they'll take first overall. So a couple of very high picks for the Raiders as they rebuild. Miami releases quarterback Tua Tagovailoa and signs Green Bay backup Malik Willis in free agency. Willis has looked really good in place of Jordan Love in some spot duty this past year. Tua joins Kyler Murray, Geno Smith, Kirk Cousins amongst quarterbacks getting cut and hitting the market. Aaron Rodgers is out there as well. Alabama's Ty Simpson in the draft, expected to go first round at some point after Mendoza. And Travis Kelce is reportedly coming back for a 14th season in Kansas City. He made the Pro Bowl last year, but was clearly diminished athletically.
They do seem intent on having a decent offense this year, though, the Chiefs. And I wonder if he will thrive with a better offense as a whole.
Oh, boy.
They're going to be an average team. But
I mean, Mahomes had a serious injury at the end, too, so we'll see where he is at the start of the year. I will say this. Watched a couple of Kansas City games late last season, I think because they were standalone games around the Christmas season. They were out of the playoffs, of course. And I'm sitting there watching Kelce, and I'm going, oh, man, like he is really struggling, like really rigid. End of the season, so I'm sure he was fighting through some things. And a couple of comments were overheard in my household, and she said, he'll be back next year. And I'm like, well, he shouldn't be back next year because that looks like a guy who should be done playing football. She said, no, he'll be back next year.
What was the logic from her?
Again, married. He's going to do one more farewell tour because, of course, when you're in the world of music, do a farewell tour.
I thought we just did the farewell tour.
I thought that should have been the farewell tour. I was corrected. Someone gets to brag tonight.
The Eagles did tour again after the Hell Freezes Over tour.
How many times did Ozzy say this is the last tour? Elton John, we spent big money on his Goodbye Yellow Brick Road tour, and then he came back.
Yeah.
Boxers and music acts, they say they retire, they don't ever retire. Vancouver Warriors blow it in a big game. They had a chance to move into first place tie in the NLL, but they lost 10-3 to Toronto at Rogers Arena on Friday. They come out flat. They trailed 10-3 at the half. Coach Kurt Malosky said, we came out sloppy, cheated a couple of times on the back end, got punished, and missed the net more than 20 times in the first half alone, which he said unacceptable given that less than 20 misses total is more like it in an NLL game. The only good news for the Warriors is their rival in second place, Colorado, lost 2. So at 9-4, Vancouver remains tied for second place. Now a full game back of first place, Saskatchewan. 5 games left in the regular season. Warriors head to Georgia Saturday. The Swarm are just a half game back in fourth place of Vancouver. Direct competitors looking to leapfrog the Warriors. The New Zealand women and South African men lifted trophies at the Canada Rugby Sevens Vancouver at BC Place this weekend. Attendance was 42,514 in the 11th year here over a couple of days, Saturday, Sunday. The crowd didn't look that big. And I know there are many in the concourse and parading around, the fancy dress and all that. I got to say, the marketing impression didn't catch me this year as much as it has in previous years.
We're downtown every single day. I saw zero.
Well, we even saw some athletes and
But 2 weeks out, I had no idea that was coming. None.
I mean, there's a case that it's in its 11th year. It's always at this time.
You should always be striving for new audience, though.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's
you don't think the Canadian men being a part of the competitive part that hurts?
They have to give the Canadian men a wild card entry here. They change the format so that you can make sure that if you like this place and you want to keep coming back because you see that as a thriving rugby community, you have to let the home side be a part of the tournaments.
Yeah. Kind of like the Olympics and pool play, right? Like Italy's in the men's hockey tournament.
Yeah. Give them a chance to cheer them on. And I think that ultimately the Canadian men have a chance to surprise you, too. I don't think it's quite the same comparison as Italy in the hockey tournament. Like, Canada used to earn its way into the tournament. They were here before. It's too bad.
BC Boys High School Provincial Championships. And oh my goodness, here's why you love these tournaments. Blake brought us the story on the girls' side of, was it Argyle?
No.
Who was the itty bitty who won?
It was like Bella Kula or something.
Oh, Bella Kula,
Yeah.
yes. Well, we have another Bella Kula on the boys' side of the bracket. The 10th seeded Similkameen beats the number 1, 2, and 3 seeds in the 1A final. They defeat defending reigning champion St. John's 75-63 in the final. And look at the celebration here from Similkameen after they win it all. Blake, this is an itty-bitty school of some 300 students, grades 5 to 12 in Karamios. We were doing the math. So you have about 30-some kids per year if it's distributed evenly.
30 to 35, yeah.
30 to 35 kids in every grade if it's distributed evenly. Of course, you're pulling from grade 12, grade 11, maybe a tall grade 10er to play on the senior team, right? So you're looking at a pool of maybe 75 boys of age in the whole school, of which how many have picked up a basketball?
Yeah,
anyways.
You're going to have some bookworms in there, so you've got 40 boys with some level of athleticism.
Congratulations, Similkameen. What a wonderful story. I pass through Karamios often. We often stop at one of the many fruit stands there in the 2A final. Notre Dame rallied from a 15-point deficit, tied Collingwood midway through the fourth, but Collingwood survived and took the championship 78-72. Top-seeded St. Patrick's cruised to victory in the 3A final. Riley Santawana finished 3 rebounds short of a triple-double. It was 27 points, 10 assists, 7 boards for Riley. And number 2 seed Vancouver College wins its first boys 4A provincial championship since 1967. It's an awfully long time.
It's a football school.
They beat top-seeded Dover Bay. They were down early in the game, and then Dover went ice cold in the second half. So it was curtains for them. And got to say, Basketball Phil brought this kid to our attention. They had a junior reporter from Vancouver College working the tournament in his resplendent suit, doing post-game interviews. Take a listen here.
I'm here with the 2026 BCSS 4A Provincial MVP for the Vancouver College Fighting Irish, Ashton Wong. Ashton, this is VC's first senior boys championship in 59 years. What does this win mean for our school?
I mean, it's a legacy, you know. Our brothers have been working since March of 2025 to accomplish this goal, and for it to happen now, it feels like a dream come true.
You guys were down 9-0 to start the game. What adjustments did you guys make to win by 27 points?
Honestly, just staying composed the whole game. We had full belief in each other, and we knew we were gonna stick it out.
Okay. You went down with an ankle injury against Saints. What has the support been like with your teammates and Coach Shams?
Oh gosh, it's been amazing. You know, players always, even opening the door for me for practice just to watch, just maybe going on the treadmill, going on the bike just to recover. And honestly, without my team, I wouldn't be here today.
Okay, thank you. Congrats.
Of course, thank you.
He to be fair, he was not just doing this for his home
No,
school.
he was doing it throughout the tournament.
Working for the social
Still working
account.
on a name there. If you've got the name, send it to us. And I'll say this much. Farhan and Blake are getting a little nervous. All that kid needs is a few more years experience, and watch out.
This is the beauty
Coming to BC Place, Rogers Arena near you.
This is the beauty of the digital era and social media, though. One of the few beauties of social media is, that kid's doing. We didn't have that option. We couldn't do that. That wasn't being seen by anybody. So good for him. It's a good experience.
UBC did not prevail at the U Sport Final 8 basketball championships in either Calgary or Quebec City. We mentioned the 4th-seeded women were in so tough. They got such a silly draw with Saskatchewan in the quarterfinals. Saskatchewan was undefeated until the semis of the Canada West. They lost to Calgary. That meant they needed a wild card into the tournament, and yet, they were clearly the best team, and they got seeded 5th. UBC was seeded 4th, and so the next thing you know, you've got the best team in the tournament in the first round, which is underseeded. Sure enough, UBC lost by 16, then fell in the first consolation round game. The 7th-seeded men fell to Toronto Metropolitan University in the opening round at the University of Calgary. They lost to Laval in the consolation round, so it was 0-4 for UBC at the U Sport Final 8 basketball championships. The Huskies, Saskatchewan, did go on to repeat as the women's champ. And despite being the number 6 seed in the men's tournament, the Carleton University Ravens defeated Laval, TMU, and then Bishops in the final to win its 18th men's basketball championship. They are 18-0 in championship games all time. The top-seeded Victoria Vikings were upset by Bishops in the semis, but that's okay because all it did was prevent the heartbreak to losing to Carleton in the final.
And this is new this year. The word is that the degrees from Carleton University will be honored by the rest of society.
You win enough basketball championships and you get accreditation of the degrees across the professional world.
Most of the professional world, yeah.
They didn't win anything when I was there. They've done nothing but win since.
Who's the coach now?
Taffy Charles, who was a longtime assistant to Dave Smart. Results of the poll question from Friday. We asked, does the Canucks deadline work make you believe in the rebuild, Blake? Yes or no? The people said.
Yeah, I'm going to say yes one.
No.
Really?
No.
Really?
No. 68% voted.
68 no.
No.
So harsh.
You've seen where they are in the standings? You see what this roster looked like a couple of years? Come on.
They traded
you
two
think
guys with
second and
term.
third round picks from Columbus for Connor Garland are going to change the... Come on.
They traded 2 guys with term. You wanted them
Way
to
to
trade
have the
guys with
pulse,
term. They
Blake.
traded guys with term.
David says, without an AP40 trade, I'm skeptical. Graham, they made some decent moves. The thing that has me saying no is Alvin's media availability. Had me scratch my head. I dislike the talk about, let's see what happens next year when we may trade our picks to get in the playoffs. Liz, management players assessment is off. Players may be a 4 out of 10, but management gives the same player 7 or 8 out of 10. I'm forever glass half full, but I'm not so sure about the move so far. And Gregory says, I'd say yes. Acquiring draft capital at the deadline is a pretty clear signal they're committed to a rebuild. The real question is whether they can sustain it and resist the usual temptation to shortcut in the process. That's our buddy Greg in SoCal. He's been watching and listening for many, many years. Shout out, Greg.
Welcome back, Greg.
One error and omission. Evander Kane, the tracksuit incident, was with his Winnipeg Jets teammates. I think I said Buffalo last week.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time and connecting with the program. Please do subscribe to all our assorted channels, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social. That's X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky. live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific week times, and weekdays. And please do support the community sponsors you hear us talking about. Keep it local.